Hello and welcome along to this week's episode of It's Not Just Cricket. Sorry, we're a couple of days late. We've got a special guest who I'm going to introduce in a moment. And we had to make sure we got on this week's episode. We will be back next week to do our bonus daily wraps of the third Ashes test. Probably we'll do 2 of the first 3 days, maybe the first 3. If it goes that far, we'll keep you posted. Follow us on our socials at INJCPod. And we'll let you know which days we're going to do. But as usual, pretty much as soon as that last ball is bowled, me and Azeem will pop up and we'll also be live on the Cricket Smash YouTube channel. Loads to talk about today. It's obviously going to be Ashes heavy. We're going to look at where it's gone wrong for England so far, their preparation, look ahead to that third test, who could be in the England 11. We're going to reflect on Virat Kohli, return to form in his favourite format, 3 brilliant innings against South Africa. Could he even make the 2027 World Cup? Will that be his swan song? And we're going to touch on Vaibhav Suryavanshi. Azeem has been watching him live in action in Dubai this week. What a phenomenon. He's not even 15 and he's got 300s in T20 cricket. That is absolutely mind-blowing, isn't it? So Azeem's with me and delighted to say our special guest this week is none other than the cricket editor of talkSPORT, Jon Norman. Jon, thanks for joining us.
Oh, no, thank you for the invitation and also waiting for me as well. I thought the time between the two the tests would be my time to chill, and it seemed to be even busier than when I'm reporting on the Ashes. But I'm glad that, that couch that's just behind you there, Matt, it's putting me in the mood for a bit of a therapy session. I'm kind of ready. I think I need a bit of therapy. And I think this next half an hour or so it's basically free counselling after what has just been. I mean, we all want to see England win. And the last thing any of us want to see is Australia win. And unfortunately, here we are. So, yeah. It's good to be with you both.
Well, that's exactly why we do the podcast as well. It's basically our weekly therapy sessions.
Yeah.
We talk about everything, but it's got worse and worse once the Ashes have started. By the way, when you were 15, how many hundreds had you scored?
Me? I mean, I've got to think so far back. I remember being at Lord's when Sam Curran turned 20 whilst playing a test match for England. And I remember thinking, I thought that was ridiculous. Turning 20, playing test cricket at Lord's. And now here we have a guy who's 15, smashing. And wasn't his first ball in T20 a 6 or something ridiculous as well? I mean, it's just the way of the world. I mean, you see it at the other end, don't you? Jimmy Anderson playing international cricket past the age of 40, and players around the world being able to extend their careers. And we're in such a world of professionalism when it comes to sport that it's at the other end as well, that the life cycle of a sports person is just extended out because of advances in, I suppose, the science and health and also the financial aspect of things. So, yeah, I mean, it's incredible to see. I mean, we could be talking about this guy. Oh, my God. Thinking about it, we could be talking about this guy. Oh, I don't actually.
30 years. 30
I mean,
years,
how old are we all going to be in 25 years' time? That is scary to think we could be talking about this guy when we're 70 odd.
Hopefully we'll still be here. I mean, that'd be nice.
Well,
wouldn't it?
I'd take that. Forget hitting centuries at 15. If I'm still here in 25 years, maybe we would have seen a competitive overseas Ashes series by then as well.
Oh, I'll take one at this stage. I'll take one in my lifetime. We'll get on to Vaibhav, incredible stuff. And yeah, it's a good point. He's almost a third of the age of Jimmy Anderson. I mean, that is mind-boggling, isn't it, as well? Let's start on the Ashes, though. And some of the comments and things that we've heard. It seems to be a lot of negativity around England at the moment in the press and in the media. And we'll talk about the sort of general view of Bazball in the media in a minute. But Brendon McCullum, Jon, said they were over-prepared after that second defeat. And we've seen recently photos of them holidaying up in Noosa, frolicking around on the beach, having a good time. Are they losing the PR war at the moment, the Bazballers?
Yeah, I think they've undone a lot of good work. I've never known England cricket fans to be as angry as they were after the Perth defeat. The Brisbane one was more expected, I suppose. I mean, we were all really disappointed with just how poorly England played in that second test. But it was the Perth defeat, the manner of which, before this series, one of the points that, we'd made on talkSPORT and I was kind of aware of was that, baseball kind of only seems to work when England are behind the game or losing, when they have to do something crazy. And if you look back over the last 2 or 3 years, they've been in winning positions against Australia, Pakistan, India, all the nations. And they've managed to lose games which they should have won. It's almost like they don't know how to win when they're in front of a game. So the manner that they shot themselves in the foot in that afternoon session at Perth and confounded it with some poor bowling to lose the game, that really, really rocked everybody, because it's difficult playing in Australia. But this is an England team that we just seems to just defeat itself more often than not. And then, of course, you go to the pink ball test and you've got a situation where Jamie Smith has never played a pink ball game of cricket, and Marnus Labuschagne, Mitchell Starc and Travis Head they got the cheat code. You knew it was going to be really, really difficult for England to win that test match. They didn't win that test match. There's less surprise about that. But the manner of it, the batting, the bowling, the fielding, and dare I say it, even the captaincy, was so far short. Now we find ourselves in a position where 2-0 down with 3 to play. Everybody's up in arms about it. But it doesn't feel like England have lost to Australia as well as they've played. It feels like England have lost to themselves. And that's pretty difficult to stomach.
Yeah, Azeem, I don't know what you think, but I almost think, these photos of them in Noosa and stuff, I'm not that bothered about that, to be honest. I feel like you've got a break. I think they need to get away from cricket a little bit. But the fact that they're losing, these things obviously get highlighted a lot more. I also didn't have a massive problem with them not playing that game under lights in Canberra, because it's different conditions, and I'd rather they got used to similar conditions if they're going to be netting enough in Brisbane. But I don't know if you agree, but I think the big problem big mistake that they committed was in the build up to the first game, and playing on a club pitch, which is completely different to playing at the Optus Stadium, and not playing a proper match. And I think ever since that point, we've been chasing our tails.
Yeah, well, I think the pictures and stuff, for me, it's either neither here nor there. It does look bad, but it was it was put in the diary. The problem, I think you're right, is that when you had that first, you got it wrong, you underprepared. And then what you've done because of that, you're chasing it. And then you've gone, and you know what, Brendon McCullum's quote, even though I wouldn't have said it, I actually know what he's trying to say. But what I would say back to him is, whose decision was that? So basically what he said to us is, under pressure, when they came under the pump, him as a coach, him as a leader, could not keep his players calm enough and could not stick to a preparation that would help them be the best prepared going into the second test match. So I think and this has started before, right now it's all falling apart, or feels like it's falling apart, because, they've completely been in their own delusional world. And I'm glad John just mentioned the captaincy, actually, because I was listening to, John's show with Steve Armisen straight after the match. And that's when Ben did the press end of the game. And actually, for me, I actually thought that Ben threw his players under the bus. I thought he was wrong in what he said, because he called them weak, or he's tried to say some players were weak. But if I look at what happened in the game, Brydon Cars was running in bowling halfway down, but he wasn't running in bowling halfway down when the field had been set to pitch it up. The field had been set by Ben himself for him to be following that plan. And same as Ollie Pope and Zach Crowley. Now, I do believe that players need to take their own responsibility, but what have you had for the last 4 years? You've told them to go out, run towards danger, double down, believe in yourself, everything will be fine. So they're actually following your very orders, your very vision that you've created. And I think one of the things I said to you whenever we've had this argument, Matt, when you've come back with, well, we'll see, is that when it goes wrong, and this has been my big takeaway from the people I've listened to since the end of the match, is there isn't one thing that you can pick out because no one quite knows where it's gone wrong. And that's what happens when you go into extremes. You can pick up little things here, there, everywhere, preparation, Lilac Hill, the makeup of the team, the state matches, etc., whether you go to Canberra or you don't. Actually, and to add to that, if they had gone to Canberra, or what I would have done is sent a couple of them to Canberra, they might not have over-prepared for the second test match because they would have had their brains to be a bit more calmer that they've been in a match situation. I do agree to your main point, but I think this England setup for far too long has actually been a one fit for all. A lot of the things that Ben and Brendon talk about is simplicity, etc., etc. I actually think they complicate the game. I think they're the very people, I would say, they complicate a very simple game. Cricket is a simple game. We were brought up on, simple things like taking the bowlers to the third, fourth spells. You know what? It might be entertaining for you to watch a few sixes. Well, I hate to break it to you. Australia scored at a higher run rate a lot of the times, and they were way more entertaining while doing it, and they're winning 2-0. And, I find it a little bit frustrating watching what we have because a lot of this, it felt like, it was coming. It was just a matter of time.
That's actually a good point that you make there. And I'm going to chuck this at you, John, actually. Have we seen in the last couple of games that actually what they've been trying to do is reinvent the wheel in terms of how Test cricket is played and will be played in the future? But have we seen that actually it's quite hard to reinvent the wheel? And there's a reason why Test cricket has been played in a certain way over decades and decades and decades, because it's a very difficult game. And you can still play aggressively, but there is a traditional way of playing it. And Bazball just ultimately is not going to be successful over a long period of time.
Yeah, I think that it's been quite evident that there are certain aspects to the game that you can't reinvent. And one of the key aspects of the game that you can't reinvent is taking away the need for fast bowlers to recuperate between innings. If you are batting for 60 overs, your bowlers aren't going to get as much rest as a team that are batting for 90 overs. You can't change that. So if pace bowling, the pace is down in second innings, there is a physiological reason for that. And no amount of hubris or, top line is going to change that. The other thing that you're never, ever going to change is there are going to be periods where you have to cede control of the game to the opposition. There will be periods where the bowlers will be on top, or indeed the batters will be on top, and you have to change your game accordingly. And so, again, these are age-old aspects to Test cricket that will always be part of the game. You're never, ever going to change that. You can be positive. Of course you can be positive. But for me, the Bazball mantra is essentially about putting the players out there in a mindset where they don't feel pressure, which is very different to what we've been seeing in the last two Test matches. I think that there's been a simplicity about England's tactics over the last 3 or 4 years, which at the start served them well when they came up against teams that they should be beating anyway. Then, of course, people will mention they'd only won one Test in 17 as a reason why it was so, uber successful. But, with COVID, the end of Joe Root's captaincy, there was some real problems within that England setup, which a change in management actually immediately rectified, and not playing in COVID. But let's not we don't want revisionist history. That first 18 months under Brendon, Ben and Rob was wild and fun and carefree and brilliant. And it brought to the game a lot of people who weren't actually that interested in cricket. Now, though, you've got a situation where they have to win. There's no point coming out at the end of the game like they did in New Zealand and saying when they lost by 1 run, yeah, but weren't you entertained? That's fine against New Zealand. Some would say it isn't fine, but that's a different argument. That's New Zealand. This is Australia. And at the end of the day, rightly or wrongly, this team will be judged on how they've gone about against India and Australia. And they have not beaten India home and away. And it looks like they're not going to beat Australia home and away. And unfortunately, no matter how you put it, you can't gloss that. So unless they come back to win 3-2 or they draw 2-2, which would be a success in itself, yeah, I mean, the Bazball concept it seems like it's coming to an end. But really, I think we've kind of seen that over the last 18 months or so. And what Azeem was saying just then, I totally agree, because there has been one message coming from the management core in the period of 2022 to 2024, right? And then that defeat away at India, where, England lost 4-1, but they threw away a golden opportunity to go to that fifth test 2-2. Remember, first innings they led by 170. India had 3 wickets in hand. That was the point. They should have won that game. They didn't. They went on to lose it. And from that point onwards, cracks started to appear. Daft things were being said, to the press. And England came away from that tour and they said, yeah, we're kind of getting this wrong. And from that point onwards, the messaging has just been broken, and it's never really recovered to where we are now, where personally, for all the plaudits Ben Stokes and Will Jacks got for batting through that session on day 4, I watched that with very different eyes. I watched that, and I watched an Australian team who were absolutely fine with Jacks and Stokes batting at 2 runs and over. They were absolutely fine with just Nisa bowling on a length. Not a problem. You bat at 2 runs and over for the session and you'll be 15 runs ahead by whatever the break's called, I lose track. And then when it starts to goes from day to night, we'll bowl you out and win the game. And that message, I still don't understand. What if you're in the dressing room and you're the England team, you tell me what message you've taken from that test match, because I don't quite get it. Are we Bazball anymore, or is it this 2 runs and over to bat out session? Are we a weak team? Or is Stokes is going to come out and speak and say, I shouldn't have said that, much like I shouldn't have said the has been comment. Is that going to happen? I think now we're getting mixed messaging. After that first test, Stokes came out and said, we need to be more aggressive, but also the players that were in needed to kick on.
Yeah.
But how does a player that's in kick on? Right? So, and what happened with but the players that weren't in, they got out playing aggressive shots. So I don't actually know what the problem is here. So I think mixed messaging and that simplistic kind of like, we're just going to go out there and biff it, has gone. And now it's been replaced by confusion. And now we're not really sure what to expect when we get to Adelaide.
And we don't know what to expect from the England team either, do we? I mean, I was thinking about it, and there are quite a few different things they could do to try and change things up. So let's have a think about what we think they're going to do then in terms of the 11. Azeem, what do you reckon they will do? What would you do as well?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to go into what they will do because, God knows what side of the bed Brendon wakes up on or what sort of night he's had, because at the minute it seems like they get together as a think tank and think what's the most normal thing to do and do the complete opposite. So I'm not going to try and even judge what they're going to do. I think the challenge they have here now is so big. And it was the point, John made this point about, and I heard him on again when I was listening about Will Jackson, Ben Stokes that morning. And what did that really achieve? And I actually felt the same thing, because for me, for 3.5 years, you've basically, no matter what the situation, you've gone whack it, whack it, whack it. All of a sudden, the pressure it was always going to be the away Ashes series. The pressure is well and truly on. Now, Ben and Joe are much better than the rest of them, right? But they were able to, identify that situation and play in a manner that I didn't think actually achieved anything. It might make people feel good, because actually that was the morning sessions were the time where you can actually score. So my problem with this team, and it's been from the minute they've come in, you know, when people talk about 1 in 17, that's gone. You don't go into a room and make a decision on how you're going to go about something, in my opinion, on what someone else was doing. In a way, you've got to try and have fresh eyes to the situation. And I think what they've done throughout, whether it's been the white ball team, whether it's been game to game, whether it's been selection, they've always played the game later, played one game late in terms of their tactics and the way they've gone about it. And I think the challenge for them here is to not do that. Now, I don't know.
So how do they change it up then? Because there's loads of different things they could do here. Do they bring Bashir back? Do they stick with Jacks? Do they freshen up the fast bowlers? Do they drop one of the batters?
Well, I think there's been some seriously silly suggestions. I've heard Will Jacks at 3. I've heard all sorts, and that's one thing got to be very, very careful of not doing. All of a sudden, Will Jacks batted for an hour or whatever he batted for, and he's the solution to all the problems. You can't do that. That's again going into the extreme. Simply for me, personnel, I would keep very low changes. In terms of the bowling, I think Brydon Cast, and not a criticism of him for what it's worth. He worships Ben. He was just doing whatever Ben was asking him to do, right? Brydon, just from a rest point of view, I would take Brydon Cast out and put Josh Tongue in. I think Bashir's got to play for Will Jacks. If we're going to live in this la-la land that we're going to go into Adelaide without a frontline spinner, he's the one you've picked. That now you have to pick him. You cannot go into a Adelaide Test match without a frontline spinner. For all that Will Jacks did, he's got to come out for that slot. In terms of where I would make the change is actually I would make Brook. And at this point, I would absolutely sit down with him and tell him he's the vice captain of the team. He's the second best. So he's dropped down now. He's one of the best players in the team. He bats up to number 3 and he bats with responsibility and he bats like a batsman. I think this is a point that if you continue down, I don't think he wants to do that.
I think he wants to be able to play the way he plays.
Yeah, but I think this has happened through this management. I've known him since a 14-year-old. What I've seen over the last 2 years of him is not the person I recognise or the player I recognise. And I think he's got caught up in it. And I think at times he's been arrogant. I think he's been frankly stupid. And I think the people around him have been. I said it at the Oval Test match. If you think 39 for 3, the option for you is to run down the pitch and hit it over extra cover or back away and slash it, and you think that's going to win Test series against the best in the world, then there's no point having that argument at this stage. And it doesn't matter what he wants to do at this stage. I would literally go to him and say, you need to lead by example now. You are the vice captain. He got the vice captaincy in front of Ollie Pope, so he goes to 3 for me. I would feel uncomfortable dropping Ollie Pope personally, but I wouldn't have a problem with him being dropped at the same time. The reason being is because I don't want too many personal changes, and I do believe that number 5 is best suited at. So they would be my changes. But I would individually, in terms of a thingy point of view, for me, and I wrote in a Substack the other day, I think Ben is becoming a problem. I honestly think Ben is over. I think he's being too controlling, and I don't think he's letting them play. I don't think he's believing in them. And I think he's taking too much on, and that's taken away from his cricket, which I've consistently said to you, we need Ben Stokes, the cricketer. I want Ben to just go away to slips. I want him to tell the bowlers it's a simple game, right? We need to hit our areas. We need to be patient. I know it's a switch, but if we continue to go down the route that we're going down, we're not going to win. We're just not going to win because Australia might not be as good as they are. And that's why this is more frustrating. They're not that as good as they normally are, and they haven't had their best players, but they're smart cricketers. And they understand the game. That period of Stark and Boland batting for time was a great example of that. So yeah, for me, personal changes as less as possible, mindset shift. But I think Brendon and Ben need to stop giving sound bites to the press and just calm down.
John, what would you do?
Yeah, I have to agree with a lot of what Azeem's saying. It feels like we're going to the 5th test to me. It's the Scott Borthwick. It's the Mason Crane. It's the Boyd Rankin. It's the Sam Billings, and it's like, hang on, it's the third test. The Ashes haven't been lost yet. Mark Wood's come home, but half the team are still in Australia. I think you've got to remember what message this is going to take. This is probably the biggest selection decision Brendon McCullum and Ben Stokes have ever had and will ever have, because it's not just about the team that they're going to put out, which is massive. It's the message this is going to give to the dressing room. So let's imagine they drop Ollie Pope, a guy that has been number 3 bat, number 6 bat, wicketkeeper, vice captain, right? Over the last 2 years. They drop him. What message does that tell the entire dressing room? Okay, so they're going to have to factor that in. Secondly, Bashir. Shoaib Bashir has been in this side for 3 years to play in this Ashes. What message does that give to the dressing room if they suddenly, at the last minute, play Will Jacks ahead of Shoaib Bashir? So there are 2 huge decisions that they've got to make. And then think about the replacements. Jacob Bethel has never scored a first-class century and has basically been sitting on his backside for the last 12 months, touring around. Not his fault. You're not bringing in a guy with, 10 years experience of first-class cricket, 30 first-class hundreds, an experienced old pro, and slotting him in, at number 3, the most important batting position in the top 6. It's not like you've got a Jonathan Trott ready to come in. You've got Jacob Bethel. So again, you've got to work this out. So personally, I've never seen Ollie Pope as a number 3. Nothing I've seen of Ollie Pope has ever indicated that he's a number 3. What I find a little bit alarming is that in that first innings of the first test, he seemed to be lining up really well and seemed to know his scoring areas, square of the wicket, not driving down the ground and through mid-wicket. And if it's dropped short, you know what to do. What happened between that and the second test? That for me was really, really concerning. I mean, personally, I still don't like him at 3. I would almost be tempted to move him down the order. I think he does a job, I think he does a job for England. I think you could almost give him the gloves. I would be more concerned about Jamie Smith right now. Do you move Jamie Smith up to 3? I don't know the answer. I think that there's a big decision to be made there. Do you just stick with Ollie Pope at 3 and hope that England win the toss and they bat on a decent track in conditions that should suit his game? You just say to him, this is your chance, mate. Keep it as it is. I wouldn't bring in Bethel. Then you're looking at the bowlers. And again, are you really... See, the selection for me, and I was a lone voice, the selection of Will Jacks for that second test, for me, that was a really trying to cover all bases without actually covering any of them selection. Are you really going to need Will Jacks to bowl you to a win, or to hold at one end? Is that really what you're expecting from this test match? No.
They were lengthening the batting lineup.
But why are you doing that? Why do you feel the need to lengthen a batting order which has Jamie Smith at 7 and then Gus Atkinson, who's got a test century at 8? Well, not that he batted at 8 in the end. And Brydon Cast, who's hit first class. That for me was like, no, there's something I don't like about this at all. And so it proved he didn't bowl, really. Took a great catch and he scored a few runs in the second innings, but they were irrelevant runs. For me, as soon as that decision was made, I thought, hang on a second, that now sets you up for a problem. Because they're going to have to either drop Will Jacks, which I think they should, and they're going to bring back Bashir, and Bashir's never really been the answer anyway, but it makes more sense to me because he's got to
play in Adelaide, hasn't he? I mean, like, if he's going to play anywhere...
If he doesn't, I mean, what's he doing there? It's an absolute mess. Personally, I would play Bashir for Jacks. I'll bring in Josh Tongue. What I like about Josh Tongue is he bowls wicket-taking deliveries. So you can rely on Atkinson for consistency. you can give the new ball to Archer, and Josh Tongue will come in and he will break it. He will break a partnership, and then hopefully he can blow away the tail. He bowls horrible deliveries. He can be a bit expensive. He can be a bit all over the place, but he gets set batters out, and he will just give the side a little bit of oomph, and it won't suggest that the team are panicking. If England line up in that third test with exactly the same batting order, fine. They just say, you've just got to, these are the conditions. It's been bowler dominated for 2 tests. Now it's going to be a bit more batter friendly. Go and score some runs. And Tong comes in for Cass. Bashir comes in for Jacks. That is a proper looking team for me. Go and do it.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I think the batters, I wouldn't drop Jamie Smith either. Like I think you say to him, as you say, normal day test match should be a better track. Right, you've had a couple of sighters. Now you've got to go and get runs in this game. Bethel, agree, is not a good replacement for a number 3. So I think you just have to stick with Pope. And I am actually thinking back to that first test when he did shape up nicely. He looked the best. And you know, he's had a bad test match, but that was a good sign. I'm hoping he can kind of get back to that. And a lot of people are saying, well, you can't drop Will Jacks. But I mean, he got 40 odd. He looked all right in the first innings well, and he bowled okay. But if you look at the games at Adelaide so far in the Sheffield Shield, I think the spinners have got wickets in the first innings. You know, I think Mitchell Swepson, I know he's a leggy, but he got a 10-for in the first game there playing for Queensland. So the spinner's going to play a part. And the really scary thing about this Ashes series is Nathan Lyon is the big difference maker for them, right? If it comes down to a shootout between the spinners, we are screwed. And in Adelaide, that could happen. And Nathan Lyon has done nothing. And he must be absolutely chomping at the bit, a ground he knows very well, to come in. I'm a bit worried that he's going to have a big, big part to play in this test. Azeem.
Yeah, look, obviously from an Australian point of view, the turning point in the home Ashes series was when Nathan Lyon got injured, because that seam attack was not used to bowling without him. They've done it throughout, their careers. And I watched the Old Trafford match, and they were completely lost without him. And we saw the interview, so he's going to be chomping at the bit, and it's going to be a challenge for England. I think John was on about Will Jacks, and I'm with John. I wouldn't have even had him in the squad. I think they've tried to cover everything, and in a way, while telling everyone that they're these big brash, attacking positive, all their decisions have been tentative and a little bit weak, really, to be honest, because that decision is one of, well, we're not quite sure what to do, so let's try and cover everything. England's got a challenge ahead, but the one thing, and it's been mentioned before about Bazball being very good when England are down. And if you look at the personality, I'm a big believer that, your team is it's your captain's personality. And Ben Stokes' best times in his careers are always when, the chips are down, when it's not expected, and he comes out fighting. I do expect England to come out fighting. I just hope that they do it in a manner that is going to allow them to win, because, I know we disagree on this. I actually think these are good players, and I think that, I still think they are some of the best players that we have in the country. So, listen, I think for me, England's got to just try and simplify the game. More or less, you have to, that's the challenge individually and as a team. What's happened. It cannot be changed. And yeah, if there's one thing I would love, and I love John's view on this as well, is like, I don't know who the media people are, is try and get Ben, Brendon and these guys to realize that they're only adding pressure with these sound bites, these constant sound bites. They've been a gift. You talk about the pictures coming out of, of the little break. They've been a gift to the Australian press from the minute they've landed. And that will play a part. If they're going to come back, they're going to need to, concentrate on the pitch, but also realize that actually they're there for an Ashes tour, where the Australian public and the Australian media are looking for literally anything they can find to pressurize them.
Yeah. They have ever since they've been waiting for them, haven't they? Ever since they arrived individually with their bags, all the Aussie snappers were there waiting for them with all the negative headlines. Final thought then on the Ashes before we move on to Kohli and a bit of Vaibhav Suryavanshi. John, if England lose this heavily, say 4-1, 4-0, God forbid 5-0, will Stokes and McCullum lose their jobs, do you think?
I think Stokes is an honourable man, proud man. And I think if England were to lose 5-0, 4-0 with rain somewhere, I think he would offer his resignation. Yeah. Whether it'll be taken or not, I don't know. But I think I can imagine him. This is it. This is what it's all been about. And I think he is already looking a chastened and at times shell-shocked figure. I think if he is to walk away from this and if he feels like his own captaincy or lack of form has contributed, and of course, why wouldn't he, to a 4-0 or 5-0 series defeat, I think he'd probably, put forward the notion that maybe it's time to step down. In terms of Brendon, I don't know, because he did sign that contract extension and is the white ball coach. Don't know, slightly more muddied water there. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm not sure whether. I think Stokes would probably take responsibility. I think he's that kind of person.
Yeah, and he looks already quite tired, doesn't he? I mean, it really does age you being the England Test captain after all. Whenever they do let go of the job, they all look knackered, don't they? The likes of Nasser and Athers. It takes a lot out of you.
I think there was a comment that Ben Stokes made, which I thought, which resonated, or certainly, there was a little warning sign. He was asked about the trip to Noosa, and he said he's experienced, the worst that this game can bring from a mental health perspective. I'm paraphrasing. He said it's important. You've got to be able to step away. We've got a month, right? The game, less than a month now, but still a lot of cricket to be played and a long time as well. And it's so intense. It's so in your face. There's so much going on. And I remember being out in Australia in 06, 07, when England lost 5-0. I remember seeing Freddie Flintoff in a bar in Perth after England had lost 3-0, and he didn't look right. Didn't look right at all. And, fast forward 15 years, he's written about it, he's spoken about it. He wasn't right. He was really in a really bad place. So I think we do need to be watchful of that and be understanding that what these guys are going through, is so intense, and it's so disappointing as well. I mean, this is what it's all been about, and it's all unraveling so quickly. And you can't move for former England internationals telling you Australia is the worst place in the world to be when it starts going wrong. And now a lot of these current players are thinking, yeah, I'm kind of get it now. So, I think that's something that we should probably bear in mind moving forward.
I think for me, Ben, I agree with John. I think Ben's already decided. You can tell in the way he spoke at that end of that match. I think it was the first time he'd kept a lid on all of this. And in a way, I think he got it wrong in that perspective. And for me, he's not had anywhere near the support that he should have had. He's been doing far too much, and there's been far too much on him. But I think the fact that he broke a little bit and said, potentially called his players weak, that was a sign that he's had enough. For me, honestly, call me cynical if you want, but I saw a piece the other day that it's £1 million for Brendon to be sacked for a payout if they sack him. I don't know how true that is, but if that is true, and some of the things that Brendon's coming out with, I don't think Brendon will resign. I think Brendon wants to get sacked, and I think England will have to pull that trigger if they have to. And the one person not mentioned above it all, I think, look, Rob Key has to take accountability for all of it, if I'm being perfectly honest. And I was one of the people who was an advocate for Rob Key. And I think a lot of the major decisions Rob's got wrong. Preparation coming into this. I think one of the things that strikes me is that Rob talked about how he wants everyone agreeing. He wants a captain and coach agreeing all the time. He doesn't believe in the fact that there's to be a different sort of view. And And I think this, what we've seen has been because of that they all see the world in the same way. So I think Rob's got to take that accountability, and I expect if it ends up 4 or 5-0, I expect Rob to resign as well.
Okay, listen, it wouldn't be a massive surprise, would it? That's what happens at the end of Ashes series, at the end of chastening defeats. Sometimes you do need to just change things up and have fresh voices, and it could be the end of the Bazball cycle. Anyway, we've got 3 test matches. We can turn it around, guys. You never know. It could be 3-2. Let's move on anyway. Talk about something a bit more cheerful, because we all get a bit down, don't we, when we're talking about the Ashes at the moment. Let's talk about something a little bit happier. That is Virat Kohli. I mean, not everyone loves Kohli, but I personally would like to see him go on for as long as possible. Azeem, me and you debated this a few times over the last few months, didn't we, about how long Kohli and Rohit could go for. I was quite sceptical initially they could both make the 2027 World Cup. But he's just returned in his favourite format in ODIs against a very good South Africa team. He's banged out 200s and an unbeaten 65 to win the series 2-1 for them. I think he said it was the best he's played in a very long time. 37 years old. He's going to make the 2027 World Cup, isn't he?
Yeah, he's going to make it, but it looks like the coach is under pressure now. Because obviously the coach had a big part in him and Rohit, retiring in the other formats. But he looked in great nick. He looked happy. He played the games. He's back in London. He's enjoying life. I expect him to. If he's playing with a target, and that seems to be the 2027 World Cup.
Yeah, cruising around the coffee shops of Notting Hill, apparently. Would you be very surprised now if he didn't make it, John?
Yeah, I would be. And also, I mean, South Africa, when he was captain, provided him with one of his biggest disappointments, didn't it? Because, India's record overseas was always the negative that surrounded the team, even when they were blessed with so much talent. And then Kohli took over and suddenly, results started to turn for their better. They went to South Africa expecting to win there for the first time, and it didn't go to plan. Then they came to England and lost that one-off test, the one that had been postponed. So now Kohli's walked away from Test cricket. He's probably got that work-life balance, which we all dream of. And maybe, just maybe, scoring those runs and playing as well as he did has just reminded him of how much he loves the game, and the game certainly loves him. So I can see him playing through. He's certainly fit enough. If he's got the mental drive and the team will want him, I think it's a win-win. I'll be very surprised. You look ahead. This is a great thing with cricket. There's conversations surrounding Kane Williamson. When's he going to step away from cricket, from international cricket? He's got his own work-life balance issues. He's approaching the end of his career. He's already stepped away from T20 cricket. You look ahead for the calendar over the next 12 months. There's a test tour to England, test tour to Australia. Then there's that 2027 World Cup. And you just think, cricketers are blessed in a way. They can almost choose. It doesn't always work out this way. In fact, more often it doesn't. But they can choose their out. And Kohli has chosen his out with T20 cricket and test cricket. 2027 World Cup seems like a good out, doesn't it? A really good out to bow out. And of course, what will be in his mind and Rohit's is that final in 2023. Losing to Australia, how much that hurt. A chance to put that behind them forever in a positive way. I think it all makes sense. He's got to stick around, really.
Yeah, that'd be some swan song, wouldn't it? Imagine if he could lift the trophy in 2027. That would be incredible. Rohit might make it as well. I think he's not quite as fit as Kohli. He's done okay since he came back. We'll keep an eye on him too. It'd be amazing if they both could play in it. Let's talk, though, to finish off about an Indian player who's at the other end of his career. And we mentioned him at the top of the show. Vaibhav Suryavanshi, the phenomenon who we saw break into the IPL last year at the age of 14. Well, Azeem, you've just seen him up close and personal, right? You just saw him score 171 off less than 100 balls in the Under-19 Asia Cup against the UAE in Dubai. He's not even 15 years old yet. It is just absolutely astonishing. By the way, where was that you saw him play? Because that grass looked lush. It looked lovely. That.
Yeah, ICC Academy is always in good condition. The best comment or best compliment I think anyone can give him, like, I was just going to the gym and I saw there was a match on, and as soon as I saw it was India under-19, the first thing I tried to see if basically he was playing, and you could tell he's so easy to spot. He was batting, so I put all my plans aside in the morning and went across to watch him. And honestly, he's only 14. It was like watching someone who had so much more time, but he looked like the 19-year-old. Everyone else was playing like 14-year-olds. It was just like he wasn't even out of second or third gear. And I said to my friend who I was watching with, you can just tell he knows whenever he wants or whenever he decides, he's just going to hit sixes. And it's not a big ground anyway. So he was on about 40 odd. And I thought, right, I'll go to the gym, come back. He'll be on about 80 or 90, and then he'll kick on to try and, just whack it. I went and came back. He was on 130. He'd already decided that he was too bored, and it just looked very, very easy for him. I think we're very lucky to be watching, early stages of what could be an incredible career. But I think challenges for him and people around him are going to be huge. When you've got people literally that anyone that's around here will see the fact that India under 19 are playing, they're going to change their plans to go watch a 14-year-old. That's incredible.
John, this might be seen as a big call, but he's not 15 yet. He's got 3. That doesn't count as a T20 100, by the way. It was a 50-over game in here, wasn't it? But it doesn't count as an official 100. He's got 3 official T20 100s already, I think, in 18 games before the age of 15 years old. Are we looking at the greatest prodigy, the greatest young batting talent in world cricket that we've seen probably since Sachin Tendulkar in terms of all of the hype around him?
Yeah, off the top of my head, it's difficult to think of another at that age, certainly. Look, you do have to tread carefully because, you only have to go back a few years. Sarfraz Khan as a 17-year-old, playing for Royal Challengers Bangalore, and they kept him on. They got rid of, didn't they get rid of KL Rahul? They retained him essentially.
Yeah, you're right. An
amazing start, and you often see amazing starts to careers, don't you? And then life hits you, or troubles hit you, or whatever hits you. Maybe it's fitness, maybe it's injury. Sarfraz Khan picked up an injury, and so yeah, I can't think of a parallel. And of course, you wouldn't find a player enabled to play at that age outside of the subcontinent. So, it's not quite like for like. But yeah, look, anybody that can play at that level and can attract attention from within the game, from those that used to play the game and still do, is someone to keep an eye on. But, Azeem will know, there's a freedom that comes from being young. At the moment, everything's very simple for him. Go out there and hit sixes and play the game and enjoy yourself. But how is he going to deal with real life as it hits at whatever age? Because it will hit. How is he going to get through that? You mentioned Sachin Tendulkar, who was his protege at the time, or his protege at the time. Was it Vinu Kamble?
Yeah.
He was coming through at the same time.
Together, didn't they? Yeah.
Exactly. So look at those two. Look at the difference in their careers. And that's the thing. There's the great unknown. How's he gonna deal when life isn't so good? That would be interesting to see. But as things stand, fantastic talent and enjoy it, and hopefully he can just play like that for as long as possible before the stress starts to kick in.
All right. Judging by your answer, I think you might give me a sort of a bit of a grey answer here. But when do you guys think, if you were to predict right now, will he play for India? And if so, how old will he be when he plays for India? I'll start with you, Azeem.
I mean, on current sample size that you have, you'd say he would. And I mean, this future tours program, there's so many opportunities where India especially do send like second string side, even third string sides to associate like Zimbabwe, etc. For different series. I expect him to play pretty soon. The one thing I would say is that, and again, over the last few years, I've been lucky enough to watch the India under-19s here a couple of times. The way they get their young players ready is an example to the rest of the world, and people should come and watch them. Like even where they go about the warm-ups, the way their cricketing setup. Yes, they've got all the money. Yes, everything else that they've got is untouchable. But honestly, the way they get their young batters in particular prepared and ready is something that people should be watching to copy, really. And then he's got people like Rahul Dravid in his in his sort of support network. I just hope everyone just looks after the kid, because John spoke about Vinod Kambli, Prithvi Shaw. I remember Prithvi Shaw when he played India under-19, and even when he made his Test debut. So it's just how everyone manages him away from the game is going to be the challenge, especially in India, which is so cricket is the thing. But I expect him to make his Indian debut very, very soon. I think it'll be before 17.
Okay. John, do you think you'll play Test cricket? I mean, a kid like that, and it's a long way to go, right? But he doesn't need to play Test cricket to become a super famous batsman, does he really? He can make a lot of money, he can have a lot of fame playing one-day cricket. Do you think it'd be quite interesting to see whether someone of that generation, a real talent, whether he does target Test cricket or not? He has played first-class cricket.
Well, I think he will play Test cricket. There's still a massive appetite for Test cricket in India, and as long as the Indian Test team make money, then it'll be attractive, and as long as the BCCI carve out the windows for the Indian Test team to play Test cricket, then it'll always be, an option, because they can't do anything else when the Test team are playing. It's not like they can go off and play in a T20 league overseas, can they? They're all restricted in that way. So, yeah, I mean, I think that there's definitely a pathway. I mean, I don't know the guy, but you'd imagine why wouldn't he want to play for the Indian Test team? In terms of whether he'll play for India, yeah. And as Azeem said, one of the great things about Indian cricket is that they do play these series, and they very often will send essentially a B strength team to the likes of Zimbabwe. They're always playing Sri Lanka. That's when he'll do it. He'll play Sri Lanka in a T20 series, and he'll play then. And yeah, I think it'll probably happen in the next year or so. I don't think they'll be waiting until he's 17. So yeah, I think he'll play. I think he will play Test cricket. If Test cricket still survives, the FTP is being decided right now, isn't it? World Test Championships and all of that. So we'll see. We'll see where India are, scheduled to play over the next 4 years, and you can pick a series, but I imagine he'll play all formats.
A part of me really wishes those around him keep him sort of his goal towards Test cricket, because I think that's what will determine how much success he has. Honestly, I've that format of the game, like we're finding out with the players that England have picked who have not had much first-class cricket behind them, when it goes wrong, then it can go really seriously wrong. And, you can try and wing it and pretend that you don't need it. That there is obviously cases that people have gone the other way and been able to do it. But, if you want to be the best in the world and you want to be remembered, Test cricket is still Test cricket. And, I don't know about you two, but I find it really difficult to watch white ball cricket nowadays because there's so much of it. Whereas Test cricket, when it's on, I do try and plan my sort of days around it. So I think I believe Test cricket is actually, in my view, from a spectator point of view, it's still quite healthy.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I'd like to see him continue down that path. We've seen Rishabh Pant do it. He's someone who could have easily just targeted white ball cricket. He ended up playing Test cricket. He's an excellent watch. So we need players like that to continue playing in the Test arena. I mean, John, that issue of where Test cricket will be, that's a whole nother episode, mate. I'm afraid we're going to have to get you back on, because that'll take about an hour at least of proper debate. Mate, really appreciate you coming on. It's been fabulous to get your views. Are you looking forward to your next therapy session with Harmy?
Do you know what? Both me and Harmy, the day after, because we record this show, and we were recording the show as Brendon McCullum was saying about the over preparation. And we were recording the show at the same time that Stokes was saying about weak men in the dressing room, and there was a lot of emotion flying around, a lot of disappointment and a bit of anger. And, after 24 hours, both me and Harmy, we actually felt bad. The reaction on, and we're part of it, right? But, I'm ignoring Insta now because it's just incessant. And we just felt bad. Felt like, is this a pile-on? Are we just piling on a team that needs our support? But then, of course, that's not really what we're here for. We're not cheerleaders. So, yeah, I think come Monday, I'll pick myself up. We'll look forward to the Adelaide Test and hopefully a bit of old school cricket. Hopefully it's old school cricket when England are batting, though, right? Win the toss again and just bat the day and bat till lunch on day 2. Old school mentality. Just do that. My fear is we will see old school cricket, but it'll be Australia winning the toss and Australia batting until lunch on day 2. And if that happens, or even past it, and if that happens, yeah, well,
it's going to be tough.
That's when it's going to be very difficult.
That's when Nathan Lyon might come into play big time. But yeah, fingers crossed.
And that's the other thing with Nathan Lyon. You bring Bethel in, so you're replacing a right-hander with a left-hander, and you got Lyon back in the side, and suddenly he's looking at Duckett, Bethel, Stokes, and thinking, "Give me the ball."
Hallelujah.
Yeah, get me on early. Yeah. Well, we'll leave that to there, that cheerful thought. You'll hear from us again after day one. We're going to do day one, aren't we, Azeem? We're going to pop up and do a quick 15 minutes. Yeah. Okay, perfect. So we'll do that. That'll be up there. It'll be live on the Cricket Smash YouTube channel, and we'll pop the audio podcast up there probably within an hour of the last ball or so. It'll be pretty quick. But as I say, if you want to watch us, you can tune in live on the Cricket Smash YouTube channel or via our socials. Thanks very much, all of you guys. Thanks to John. Thanks to Azeem, as ever. We'll be back very soon.